Inconclusive evidence means that blanket supplementation of DHA for vegans is not warranted at this time according to the medical community. However, there is a big difference, you guys, between narrowly avoiding deficiency and actually pursuing optimal health.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to The Vegan View.
Today we're going to be doing a new little series we'd like to call Ask a Dietitian.
We are so excited today. We have registered dietitian Grace Pascale back on. You might have seen her in a few of our previous episodes. She is an amazing resource.
What's up, fam? It's Gracie here. I am a registered dietitian that specializes in plant-based nutrition, anti-inflammatory diets, and eating disorder recovery. I'm also a plant-based mom, a chickpea enthusiast, a chronic oversharer.
We decided to have on a real registered dietitian to answer your questions, and today's episode we'll be discussing omegas, DHA. We will be asking the questions and Grace will be answering them. To start this off, Grace, what are omegas and what is DHA?
Omegas are really just simply a class of dietary fats. So there's omega-3s, omega-6s, and omega-9 fatty acids, and each one serves a really important role in the body. However, it is important to get the right balance of these, as an imbalance such as excessive intake of something like omega-6 and insufficient intake of omega-3s can lead to a number of chronic diseases, namely things like diabetes and cardiac disease. Now, omega-9s can be made in the body. Those are non-essential, so let's move right along to the sexy stuff, omega-6s and omega-3s. So while omega-6s are needed, the Western diet contains far more than is actually beneficial, especially when considering these omega-6s are precursors to pro-inflammatory compounds. Omega-6s are found in foods like processed foods, fast foods, cakes, fatty meats, and even healthier foods like peanut butter and tofu. Omega-3 fatty acids are also an essential type of fat that the body cannot make on its own, also needed to survive, but these are the healthier forms of omega, so the type that produces anti-inflammatory eicosanoids and aids in things like neurological development, reducing the risk for cardiac disease, and slowing the natural shrinking of the brain as we age. Now, the ideal ratio of omega-6s to omega-3 fatty acids is 4:1 or less. So to put that in perspective, the Western diet has a ratio of about 30:1 on average. So in order to improve our health and reduce inflammation and all of those things, we want to eat less omega-6s and more omega-3s. Hence the obsession with omega-3 fatty acids. Now, there are different types of omega-3s. EPA and DHA are the long-chain omegas, typically found in things like fish or krill or algae oil, and these are the biologically active forms of omega. ALA is actually a short-chain fatty acid omega-3, and that's the kind found in plant foods like hemp seeds or flax seeds, chia seeds, etc., and that's not quite as easily able to be utilized and benefited from, which we'll dive into.
Do you have to take an omega supplement, or can you get everything that you need from foods like flax seeds and chia seeds? And if so, how much of those foods do you actually need?
Here's the short of it. While you can get omega-3 fatty acids from things like chia and flax and walnuts and hemp hearts, we need to remember it's not what you eat, it's what your body is able to do with that. And in order to reap the benefits of omega-3 fatty acids, those plant-based short-chain omega-3s have to be converted into the biologically active long-chain omega-3s known as EPA and DHA. That conversion rate is, clutch your pearls, pretty negligible, estimated to be between 1 and 10%. And if you eat a diet rich in omega-6s, so for us vegans, that's one high in things like processed foods, desserts, vegan ice creams, all that deliciousness, you can actually impair your conversion rate further, reducing it by as much as 50%. Not only that, but alcohol intake, fasting, insufficient protein intake, and too much sugar consumption can also decrease that conversion rate as well. 19-year-old me in college, looking at you. However, studies do show that being young, so of childbearing age, and eating primarily a plant-based diet are two separate factors that may help boost that conversion rate, if of course the benefit of your youth isn't canceled out entirely by things like binge drinking and your French fry intake. But you can maximize that conversion rate with that ideal omega-6 to omega-3 ratio of 4:1, or even more ideal, 1:1. But let me level with you right now. This would be really hard to achieve. If you're eating 2,000 calories a day, shooting for something like a 1:1 ratio, this would look like eating 7 to 9 grams of omega-6s per day and 7 to 9 grams of omega-3s per day. And even if you're shooting that and maximizing your conversion rate, Is that sufficient to meet your DHA needs? This is kind of the big resounding question here. Is your ALA intake sufficient or isn't it? Well, here's the summary. If you're vegan and you don't take any direct source of EPA or DHA like algae oil, scientists do not have conclusive evidence that vegan/vegetarians' health status could be improved with direct sources of DHA. But this is likely because vegans and vegetarians already have lower rates of the very conditions that omega-3 fatty acids have been shown to help prevent, things like heart disease and Alzheimer's. So, inconclusive evidence means that blanket supplementation of DHA for vegans is not warranted at this time according to the medical community. However, there is a big difference, you guys, between narrowly avoiding deficiency and actually pursuing optimal health. I, as a dietitian, recommend that all my clients take a direct source of DHA, my favorite being a pollutant-free algae-based omega DHA from the brand Nordic Naturals. You can actually buy their DHA at a big fat discount using my dispensary, which I'll be sure to link in the description of this video. I also want to be sure to point out that the research is very clear that DHA supplementation for those with risk factors such as heart disease risk factors or cognitive impairments or who are pregnant or breastfeeding would be extremely beneficial, and in the case of pregnancy and lactation, that supplementation would be critical. So 250 milligrams of long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, so EPA and DHA, will get the job done just fine there.
Next question is, how do we know if we're deficient in anything?
So signs of deficiency for omega-3 fatty acids are things like dry skin, brittle hair and nails, dandruff, fatigue, poor concentration, weight gain, eyesight problems, and other kind of general symptoms of inflammation. Outside of these symptoms, there's really no known cutoff as far as concentrations of DHA or EPA that reflect normal values. And this is mostly because the average blood fatty acid levels here in America are not necessarily optimal ones. There are, however, quartiles that are associated with either greater or lower risk for chronic disease, and I'll be sure to list those on the screen right here.
How often should we get a blood test?
So blood cells in the body live an average of 4 months. So test results reflect eating habits over the previous 1 to 4 months. You could get a quarterly blood test, but my advice, work smarter, not harder. I would just develop a consistent-ish fatty acid intake and then get tested 4 months later after that. As long as your eating patterns remain fairly similar, there's no need to test any more frequently than every 2 years or so.
Is there ever a case where a vegan would need to eat fish again?
The short answer here is no. The U.S. Dietary Guidelines for Americans do state that for the general population, consumption of about 8 ounces or 2 servings per week of seafood, so that would provide about 250 milligrams of EPA or DHA per day on average, is recommended for things like cognitive and cardiac health. But this recommendation, we have to remember, is based on extrapolation from research illustrating the benefits of omega-3s. And where that becomes problematic is when we consider what else is in these fish, our nation's primary source of omega-3s. Unfortunately, a lot. A lot is in these fish. There's mercuries, there's PCBs, microplastics, and other neurotoxic contaminants that really just aren't fit for human consumption and will accumulate in the flesh of these fish. This really explains why for every study touting fish as a heart-healthy, brain-fueling superfood, there's another one associating fish intake with reduced cognitive performance and things like increased risk for dementia or Alzheimer's in adults, as well as observable deficits in learning and behavioral performance in growing babes and toddlers. Excessive seafood intake, only defined as 3 to 4 servings per month of fish like tuna or snapper, elevates mercury levels and causes cognitive dysfunction in otherwise healthy young adults, according to the research. It would be like if the research showed that phosphorus was good for bone health, and then the government put out the next week a published article telling everyone to go drink Coca-Cola on the reg to ensure they have a readily available source of the stuff. You can get omega-3s from fish, but there are definitely cleaner sources out there. And for anyone that's not aware, fish don't actually make omega-3s. They have omega-3s, but they don't make them. And that distinction matters because what does make omegas? Microalgae. And that's where fish get it from, and that's where you and I can get it from too. We don't need the middleman. They're contaminated, they stink, God love them, but wow, foul, and they're completely unnecessary. Not to mention, we're overfishing our oceans, meaning as a society and as a species, we catch more fish than the marine populations can reproduce. We are running out of fish, and forget that that means no more salmon burgers or fish tacos. More importantly, this has a huge effect on the biodiversity of the ocean's ecosystem. It contributes to the endangerment of vital species, it negatively impacts the health of our oceans and therefore our water quality and our air quality, and it also robs vulnerable communities overseas of the one food source they do have access to. We in America, we have other options. We need to eat those other options so that those who are not so fortunate can still have food to survive. That's not even to mention the bycatch and the oil spills and all the negative downsides of this industry. Thank you. Next, I think I'll head straight to the microalgae. It's grown in pollutant-free tanks, and if you purchase it from my favorite brand I mentioned earlier, Nordic Naturals, it's produced in an obnoxiously cute facility in Norway, and that facility actually runs off of the excess fats and oils that are not used in the omega extracting process. Pretty badass, but who's asking?
Do vegans need to take a multivitamin and or a B12 supplement, or can we get everything we need through food?
I think a multivitamin is a great little insurance policy. Most vitamins have those nutrients of concern or nutrients I think we should be intentional about pursuing on a vegan diet. Things like your vitamin D, your iodine, your zinc, etc. And while multivitamins do also have B12, a hands down, non-negotiable, 100% necessary supplement for those eating a plant-based diet, critical for things like red blood cell formation, protein metabolism, don't get me started. I actually recommend a separate B12 supplement since some of the micronutrients in multivitamins can actually damage that B12 molecule, reducing our ability to utilize and access it. So in order to absorb the recommended 3 to 7 micrograms of B12 needed daily, it's suggested that individuals supplement with at least 250 micrograms, cyanocobalamin or methylcobalamin are both fantastic, on a daily basis, or at least 2,500 micrograms on a weekly basis. And it's best to choose sublingual sprays or dissolvable tablets here, as gummy vitamins tend to have lower absorption rates and often contain gelatin too. Okay, you guys, if your head is spinning, let me hit you with the SparkNotes version when it comes to supplements on a plant-based diet. I highly recommend consuming a multivitamin, an omega-3 soft gel, and ideally a separate vitamin B12 in addition to, of course, an abundance of fresh, whole foods, plant-based goodness on a daily basis. More specifically, I recommend that all women of childbearing age take a prenatal vitamin that would be in place of, not in addition to, a regular multivite with iron in it to ensure adequate iron intake, as whether you're vegan or an omnivore, menstruation just depletes those iron levels. Overall, I hope this answered the majority of your guys' burning questions surrounding this topic. If you have additional questions, you can feel free to reach out to me via email or book a session with me through my website. I'll make sure to link that below. Rest assured that a well-planned plant-based diet is suitable for all ages and life stages. There is no nutrient found in animals that we can't find with more benefits and less baggage in plants. It just requires a little bit of intentionality along the way. Nikki, Nisha, Hannah, I love you guys. That's all I got.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you want to see more videos like this, then make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to check out the description box below.
Thank you so much to Grace Pascale for helping us out with these questions. Make sure you check her out. We'll have everything linked in the description box down below. Make sure you subscribe to this channel before you leave. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Make sure you share it with your friends if you found it helpful and you think they will as well. That helps us out a lot.
Let us know if you have any other topics you would like a registered dietitian to answer, and we will see you soon in a new video. Bye!
Bye!
Bye!